Welcome to NuttieBuddie Sports. The Arizona Cardinals versus the LA Rams.
Okay, so the game is over in LA. The Rams won the game 34-11, and I'll tell you, as a Matthew Stafford backer for so many years, it was nice to see him get his first playoff win. And we'll talk about that right now. He was 13-17 with 202 yards and 2 touchdowns. Listen, he didn't have to play great. He didn't have to be a hero. He didn't have to overcome the odds. And it was kind of nice to see from Matthew Stafford. It really was. And I know that as a Lions fan, we're just like somebody who roots for the Lions, I should say. I guess the Dolphins are my number one team. The Lions are my number two team. And as a Lions backer for all these years, it's kind of nice to see Matthew Stafford get carried for once, although he played pretty good as well. The game got out of hand early if you watch this game. So Stafford didn't have to put up a spectacular performance, but he put up a good enough performance in which to help his team win. He showed he can win big games. Now, this is like the first time I think, like in Matthew Stafford's career, personally, I believe, where he played in a big game where he had advantages as a LA Ram. Okay. Earlier this year, he beat the Buccaneers as well, and he had some advantages over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. And we're starting to see how valuable he can be. Now, I don't think he's an elite quarterback. I think he's like a great quarterback. He's just below elite, somewhere between good and great, but he's not elite. Okay, I'd put him in the same probably category as like Ben Roethlisberger. Right now, Lamar Jackson. I think Jackson can be better, obviously, as he grows. Like Matt Ryan, when Matt Ryan was pretty good. I would say, Drew Brees won a ring, but he had one of the best offensive minds as a head coach. Matthew Stafford has never had that until this year. So to me, I think that we're starting to appreciate, people are starting to appreciate Matthew Stafford more. They're starting to understand what he had to go through in Detroit with that organization did not help him. So, some years they did. They had a top 10 defense one year, and they almost won that playoff game. I rewatched it with one of my Luke, one of my friends, and man, that was rough. That was a rough watch. We just watched like the last 8 minutes. It was all highlights though, and it was a rough watch. There was some things that happened in that game, but a really clean game by Matthew Stafford. He played good. He was the better quarterback, and the better coach in this game was Sean McVay. He outcoached Cliff Kingsbury. He got his players up and ready to play. There was a moment when he called that end around to, well, no, it wasn't end around. He threw it behind the line of scrimmage to Odell. Odell threw it to Akers. It seemed like the right appropriate time to call that play. And I just feel like the Rams did a wonderful job in this game. Once again, altogether, just a dominant performance by the LA Rams here. But congratulations to Matthew Stafford and his first win. And that's the thing. I just want to just reiterate this point one more time, and then we'll continue on. Matthew Stafford, throughout his career, has always had disadvantages, the majority of the disadvantages when he played big games. And obviously it's relative, because what a big game was in Detroit is not the same as a big game in like Green Bay or LA this year. But when it came to Matthew Stafford, very rarely did he have the better head coach on his side in a big game. Okay, most of the time it was the opposite. The other team had the better head coach. Matt Patricia for 4 years. Are you kidding me? Let's not even go there, right? Most of the time he had the worst defense. He didn't have much of a run game. He always had the weaker run game. The only thing that Matthew Stafford consistently had on his side that at times was better than what his opponent had was the skill position, wide receivers, whether it was with Calvin Johnson and Nate Burleson or Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. Danny Amendola and Hawkinson. So there were times when you would rather have the weapons that Matthew Stafford had, but everything else you wanted what the other opponent had. Not only that, but when Matthew Stafford played guys like Aaron Rodgers, especially Aaron Rodgers, he wasn't better than Aaron Rodgers. So not only was he not the better quarterback, but he also had almost all the disadvantages in the game. And that's why he would lose. And I think that's something that like people were unfair to him about. It wasn't like everything is equal and Matthew Stafford could win a big game. It wasn't even like half of it was equal. Oftentimes he always had the disadvantage in the big games, right? We'll put quotes around big games because again, that's relative to what a Detroit Lion big game is and a Green Bay Packer big game is, or a Tampa Bay Buccaneers big game is. And so it's just nice to see that he can play on a team where they can carry him, or even where he doesn't have to play at such a great level that they can find a way to win games still. Okay, let's go to our next point. The Rams came to play. It was obvious the defense was amazing. They were all over Kyler Murray. Pressure from the very beginning. Donald, Miller, Floyd, they were all over Kyler Murray. It just had that pick six where he had to throw it out of the back, try to throw it out of a safety into a pick six, which I think Stafford did earlier this year, which is kind of funny. I think there was a play where he threw out of a safety and it ended up being a pick six. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that happened to Matthew Stafford earlier this year. Not only did the D come to play, they rushed the ball for 140 yards. Now, Matthew had 22 of those yards, but I think between the two main running backs, Cam Akers and Sony Michel, they had 30 carries. So that running game, the commitment to run the football opened up the play action and it got people open. Okay. So sometimes even when you're not running effectively, but you show, because I think Cam Akers only had like 3.3 yards a carry. It was like 17 of 54, but when you commit to that run game, when you do that as a team, it's always a threat. And so running 30 times, despite not averaging like 4 yards a carry, kept the defense honest, which was real good. It opened up things for Matthew Stafford and that Rams offense. Again, defense was great. We already talked a little bit about it, but basically the defense played the way they had to. I thought Ryan brought it up in our last podcast. You get pressure up the middle, it'll slow down Kyler Murray, and that's exactly what happened. Now, Kyler Murray, well, before we get to Kyler Murray, let's talk about Odell. Odell looks like he's building a lot of chemistry with his team in this offense. 4 for 54, 1 touchdown. If you watch the game, he had another 30-yard touchdown taken away, and not touchdown, but like a 30-yard gain crossing the field. Off a holding call, he got wide open. Stafford hit him in stride, but you could see that him and Stafford are getting on the same page, which could be good moving forward into the playoffs. And Odell is getting open. That's the other thing. Like, Stafford is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, and he's going to make the most out of Odell Beckham, and he can hit him while he's running in stride. Kyler Murray, let's talk about the Cardinals for a second here. He was just awful in this game. Now, granted, he did have a lot of pressure on him, obviously, and he got hit a lot, and he was running a lot. But I think, again, going back to our last podcast we did, Luke mentioned it, very important point. In the NFL, there's always pressure. So you have to handle that pressure well. And he was not handling it well. He was throwing on the runs, like into the dirt in front of his wide receivers. He wasn't opening. He wasn't completing passes on the run. He looked awful. I don't know what else to say. I will say that the broadcast brought us a very interesting stat comparison with Hopkins and without Hopkins. Clearly having a Hopkins on the field is going to benefit any team. And you could tell the Cardinals are missing Hopkins. So when you look at what the Cardinals need moving forward, they just need Hopkins to be healthy. And that's just, not anyone's fault, but, sheer luck of the football game because he was injured. And someone like Cooper Kupp wasn't. By the way, Cooper Kupp really good today, even though he wasn't his numbers weren't off the charts, but he did an excellent job of being a decoy, blocking, and then towards the end of the game, he caught some big plays, caught some balls for some big plays and made people miss to help ice the game. And then third down efficiency was awful for the Cardinals. They were 0-9, 0 for 9. And so that's 0%. So it goes to the Rams defense playing very well, but also the Cardinals offense not calling the right plays to get the first down on those third down plays. And Kyler Murray too, he's got to take some of the blame. It seemed like he was really skittish, especially early on, but he also did not perform well during garbage time either. So I don't know, 137 yards in a football game is pretty bad. Okay, so with that being said, let's go look forward a little bit. So that's sort of the game recap. Excellent job by the Rams. They get the Bucks next week, and then the Cardinals, they got the offseason to look forward to. So speaking of the offseason, what obviously we'd like to see in the offseason for the Cardinals, me personally, they're a young team. They're going to grow. I think I'm not sure how I feel about Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach. I don't really think he's that good of a head coach personally. But I don't think he's bad either. I don't know where he is. It's hard to say. Getting healthy is important. Having DeAndre Hopkins. I wonder if AJ Green, I think he only signed a 1-year deal. If he'll come back, hopefully. What is JJ Watt going to do? Is another interesting question. But really to progress and grow and make life a little easier for Kyler Murray, that would be really good for the Arizona Cardinals moving forward. I don't have, and find a way for consistency throughout the season, because really the interesting thing about the Cardinals has been under Cliff Kingsbury is they start out really hot and then they just drop off. So find a way to stay consistent throughout the season. That's really what they need to do. Rams, the thing I'll bring up with the Rams is the Super Bowl. I had them going to the Super Bowl since the very beginning of the regular season. That was my pick. If you don't believe me, I recorded it. And I also picked them at the beginning of the playoffs. They have a real shot. Tampa Bay, and I'm going to have a recap. I'm sorry, a prediction podcast on Wednesday. I'm going to record it, so it'll probably drop Thursday. But the offensive line versus that defensive line. So the Buccaneers offensive line is hurt right now, and that could go in the Rams' favor. Not to mention that the Rams beat the Buccaneers earlier this year, and Jalen Ramsey is going to love the matchup with Mike Evans. That's one thing I noticed is Ramsey, although he was good in this game, it kind of did at times seems like he was disinterested, especially towards the end, which makes sense. But I think it's because he loves it when you have that guy he has to shut down, like a DeAndre Hopkins. So now he gets Mike Evans. So I think he'll be more interested in this game. It's going to be a fun game to talk about in the future. But right now, I'm obviously going to lean towards Rams because I'm going to stick with my pick. But Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and that's what concerns me with this game moving forward. But we'll talk about there. So I'm going to stick with that. Anyway, that is the recap of the Arizona Cardinals against the Los Angeles Rams. Congratulations once again to Matthew Stafford, my guy. I'm glad you won your first playoff game. Keep it rolling. And now